were not able to make it tonight. So as you're aware, this course lasts for 8 weeks. So it'd be the time consumption would be about the same as for your SPD 695. So let me share my screen with you, and I'll see if I can pull up some documents, and we'll go ahead and get started. All right, so is everybody able to see the screen there? Yes, okay, good. All right, so, all right, this is the last one. Let me get a different one. Here we go. So let me share my screen again. There we go. All right, so you should see course outline. All right, so 695 is the prerequisite for SPD 696. You cannot take the two of them concurrently. So if you are not finished with SPD 695, then you'll need to withdraw from this class and finish up 695. Okay, and then take this course the next time it's offered, which will probably be either December or January. Okay, so I will be communicating with you through the papers that you send in, as well as through emails and other communication. Okay, I see Michaela. Welcome to the class. All right, so here's my introduction to you. Stating very briefly that I'm interested in your success in this course. You can communicate with me directly, any questions or any concerns that you may have. And if I can't find the answer or solution, I will get it for you. Okay, so if I can't answer a question immediately, I will find an answer. Okay, so you are an important link in the education of our country's future leaders and productive citizens. So even though you're working mostly with special education kids, doesn't matter. Many of them can take on leadership roles in the future. So just think of it in a positive way. So if you don't believe what I'm saying, then do a Google search for successful people who've had challenges in their learning. Okay, most of you have chosen this field of teaching because you have a passion for teaching children who have special needs. I got into special education because a couple of my own children have severe disabilities. They're grown up and adults now, and they have their own children. And sad to say, some of my grandkids have got some disabilities. And I'm just waiting to see if any of my great grandkids are going to show any disabilities. So it's a challenge working with them, but it's something that can be very enjoyable. You watch the children grow within a period of time when they're under your care. You're encouraging them, you're teaching them, you're helping them to cope with their situations. It's a wonderful feeling to be able to help them. And you probably noticed from your own research that many of the legislators who voted to put special education into the educational system, this was as a result of their own families, having people in their own families who have disabilities or challenges. So it all goes hand in hand. And without people like you and I in special education, if we're not there, we can't help the students. And we know that if left to just the general education system, they won't get very much help. It's sad to say. So we all have a very, very important role to play in working with our students. Okay, so let's see here. We'll go down a little bit. Okay, the vision and mission of the Samford College of Education. Okay, we're with National University, but the portion that we're enrolled in is the Samford College of Education. Okay. So you have your conceptual framework. You already know about that. This is shows up in all of your courses. Explains what your CLOs are, the guiding framework, and a lot of this ties hand in hand in with the California standards and the California CLOs. So you'll see that the course is designed to meet those requirements for the California Department of Education. And of course, it will work for just about any other district that you might be working in if you're outside of California. So some of the students that take classes here at National, they come from a variety of different countries. Some come from China, some come from Japan, some come from Europe. So they come here to get this education because they can use it in any school district that they will be working in. So you can feel proud that that this is a multi-national university. Okay, so you have your CLOs there. You have your course expectations. Okay, number one, you're expected to complete a design paper on a topic or area that's relevant in your classroom. Okay, so tailor this around what you're doing in your own classroom. Okay, if you're not in an ideal classroom, if you're substituting, or if you're an intern, you don't have your own classroom yet, then imagine what you will be doing in your own classroom and design this research around that. Okay, if you're already in a classroom, then it's a little bit easier for you. Okay, so chapter 1 is going to be talking about the design of the paper. Then the next part will be an analysis of 12 studies, 8 studies you've already done in SPD 695. You need 4 new ones for this for the completion of this course. Now, in this course, the studies that you'll be looking to add to what you already have, these need to be primary sources. So you cannot use articles that research other articles and compare studies. You're doing that kind of a paper yourself. So you're not going to be looking at other papers like what you're doing. You're going to be looking for primary sources. So these primary sources will be people who have already conducted research on different topics that they want to see whether they can get success for it or not. So that's what you're going to be using. Those articles have to be less than 10 years old. Okay. So if you have something that was completed in 2009, it's too old. Okay, it has to be within 10 years. Okay, so any readings, handouts, assignments that you have, they will focus on the best practices for teaching students who have disabilities or challenges. Okay, I skipped 3 and 4. Let me go back up to those. Okay, your completion of the research methodology will be chapter 3. You'll have good instructions so that you can follow those things. Then chapter 4, you're going to have a personal reflection and analysis of what all of this empirical literature is doing to help you in your classroom. Okay, what are your expectations? So chapters 1, 2, and 3 should be written in third person perspective. Okay, chapter 4, because it's a personal reflection, then that can be first person. But please, in the other 3 papers, use third person. So you may have done some research, you may want to talk about your research, so just state that something along the lines, this researcher discovered such and such, okay? That way you can keep the third person in there. All right, so the course requirements, you're going to have a minimum of 40 hours of course time. There'll be specific assignments. You're going to have to involve or invest time in researching. And your best source for researching is the National University Online Library. Okay, I recommend that you do not use Google search or Google Scholarly search. That is not going to be as complete as the university search. Okay, Google is good for just general looking up things, but sometimes you'll find bias in the articles that Google will provide for you. So it's better to stick with what the university has. Now, if you're not familiar with doing the research, or if in 695, if you really struggled with trying to do your research, you can make an appointment with the librarian and discuss the challenges that you're having, so that you can get some help in that regard. Okay. And if you need to bounce some ideas off of me, you're welcome to do that. Okay, so we have the premise that learning is a process. Now, I'm a firm believer in lifetime learning. I don't believe there's ever a time in a person's life that they stop learning. So with this in mind, then we need to find the ways that will help us to continue our search for learning. And we should try to instill that in our students in the classroom, so that they don't just take education as being very casual. Once they're in mainstream, they become adults, they're going to have some special requirements. For many of our students with disabilities, it's going to be a big challenge for them. So they need to be taught how to do the research, how to find answers, and how to feel good about finding their answers. Okay, so that is going to be a big challenge, but it's something that's enjoyable because you're teaching the children to be lifelong learners, and that's good. That's what we want. I'm sure that that's what all of you want. Okay, so you have the collaborate sessions. I have some in the calendar. We probably will not meet each time. I put those in there just in case we need to meet together to go over some requirements of the papers. I find that most often the students in this course are able to figure these things out. And if not, they can always contact me. I'm always ready to help. Okay. I am in Florida, so there's a 3-hour spread between your time and my time. For example, right now it's 10:15 here where I'm at. So I don't want to call you at 8 o'clock in the morning my time, because you're probably still in bed. And it would be a challenge if you tried to call me at, say, 10 or 11 o'clock your time at night, because I'm probably in bed at that time. So a good way of communication would be through email. So I look at my email several times a day. You can use either the National University email that I have or my personal email. I believe I posted both of those emails. They'll come to the same place, so you don't need to send it twice. Just send it once. It'll reach me, and I generally answer the same day that I receive it. Okay, if it's something that's really urgent, or if it's something that you don't want to discuss in email, then we can talk on the phone. I don't have a problem with that. Okay. All right, so there for point number one, there's a YouTube link to help you to look at any collaborate recordings. The meeting that we're doing right now, I'm recording it and I will embed it in the course. So anybody that needs to look at it, they'll be able to see it. And if you want to go back and review some things that we talked about, you're welcome to do that. Okay. All right. A couple of things that are mandatory. All of the lectures and learning activities, whether they have a grade to them or not, those are required. Okay, so they're meant to help you with your understanding of the course material and to get you thinking. Okay, you did the city training in SPD 695. You need to post those. That will be one of the first assignments. You need the certificate and the transcript. So that's 2 documents. You received both of those documents. If it has been, if you took SPD 695, say 4 or 5 years ago, and you're just coming back to complete your degree now, then your city certificate will have expired. It lasts for 3 years before it needs to be renewed. So if yours has expired, then you will need to take the course again so that you can post the new certificate and the new transcript. Okay, the university does not want me accepting any expired certificates. Okay, you will also have your literature review from SPD 695. So you need to attach that to the assignment, plus the 8 articles that you researched and used for your literature review in SPD 695. So I need those 8. Now, please do not just hook them all together in one long document. They need to be uploaded individually, one at a time, but put them in the box and then upload the box. So you'll have a number of items in that box that gets uploaded, and that will go into the grading box, and I will be able to look at those. So I need all 8 of those plus the 4 new ones that you get. All right. You will have some threaded discussions. The threaded discussions, when they're all added together, you get 20 points. So that's 5 points for each session. So the discussions are designed to answer specific questions. So each discussion will vary. The instructions are posted, so you'll be able to follow those directions. You will have one main posting, which will be of the assignment, and then you need to respond to 2 of your peers. That's a minimum. If you want to respond to more, you can. Okay, that's up to you. But it's a minimum of 2 responses. So on the calendar that I provided, it'll tell you when those items are due. If you're going to be late with an assignment for whatever reason, you're sick, something comes up, prevents you from finishing, please let me know ahead of time so that I don't deduct points for you being late. As long as you communicate with me, then I don't have a problem with giving you an extra day or two here and there. Okay, but if you don't let me know in advance, I have no idea what's going on, and I may just post an incomplete grade for that assignment. So please let me know. Another point is that if you you prepare your assignment and then you upload the assignment and then I forgot to put my references in there, or something else is missing that's very important, send me an email, tell me that there's a problem with that paper, and please don't grade it. That way I can give you a couple of days so that you can post the corrected assignment. Okay. If I open the assignment and grade it, then I'm going to give you a grade. And the university doesn't like the instructors regrading papers for new grades. Okay, so please make sure that when you upload a paper that it is what you want me to see. Okay, and please be careful, watch the assignments, see what the criteria are for the assignments so that you know exactly what's supposed to go into the assignment. Okay. It can be embarrassing to get a note saying, you didn't follow directions, so I don't have anything to grade, so I have to give you a 0. So I don't want to have to do that. So please pay attention to the instructions for the assignment. Please don't make an assumption that the assignment has to be done a certain way. Read the instructions, please. That's the safest thing for you to do. That way you can get full credit for your points. Okay. All right. And so then your rubric for the threaded discussions is right here. And by the way, this document that I'm looking at is in the course. It's in week number 1. You have 3 documents there. So I'm going over this right now with you so that you know what to look for. Okay, so to get your maximum points, then you need to follow these items here in the rubric. Okay, if you post your assignment and forget to do the peer comments, then you're going to lose points. Okay, so please make sure that you're able to get all of the points. Okay, so make sure that you look at that rubric so that you get your maximum points. Okay. All right, and then your assignments. Okay, each candidate must fully complete all assignments, and these assignments will help you to build your capstone project. Okay, what this means is that when you do chapter 1, when I grade it, send it back to you, you need to look at the paper and see what my comments are. Okay, don't ignore the comments. Okay, because I may make some suggestions to you, and those suggestions need to be completed before you submit your next paper, because chapter 1 gets submitted with chapter 2. Okay, the 2 are put together. And then when you do chapter 3, you submit chapters 1, 2, and 3. So the paper grows. Each time you're submitting the document, your paper is getting larger and larger. Okay, so please don't forget to do that. So many times the students are not doing that, and that's not good. Okay, so make sure that you look at the comments. Sometimes I'll make comments about punctuation errors or maybe citation errors, things of that nature, spelling, things like that. Please go back through your paper and correct those items. I would like to suggest a program. It's called Grammarly.com. It's a free application. You can put it on your computer, and when you're doing your paper, it will flag any possible errors. Now, you're still responsible for your paper, so you have to choose whether you're going to accept what Grammarly says or not. Okay, that's your job. Grammarly is just like any other program. There can be false negatives in there. So the human element is that you take a look at those suggestions. You decide whether you're going to accept that or not. Okay. The manual that we use to correct the format of your papers is the APA guide. It's edition number 7. Okay, I posted that in the syllabus as well. So you should have that book. 7th edition is what we're using right now. Please use that. If you have edition 6, you can use it, but just be aware that there are some minor changes. Okay, so version 7 is going to make your writing easier because some of the changes have been to get rid of some of the requirements in number 6, in edition 6. So it's really to your advantage to take a look at the 7th edition. Okay, so sometimes you can find them on Amazon, real cheap, used. It's a book that it's going to be good for the next 10 years. So if you do any other courses, or if you're trying to figure out the right way to communicate with parents, it's probably a good idea to have that. Sometimes parents get upset if, as teachers, we have spelling errors in our letters to them, in our communications. So we don't want to do that. We want to make sure that what we're doing is correct. One of the biggest problems I find in checking the grammar is the use of commas. Sometimes we have the tendency to put commas where they don't belong and not put commas where they do belong. So if you take a look at that edition 7, take a look at the use of punctuation and see how those things are used. And that'll save you some headaches. And Grammarly will usually catch those and help you with them, make suggestions and say, you might need a comma here, or you might not need a comma here. So, make your decision as to what you're going to do with that information. Okay, so you have a total of 200 points. So the city training and the literature review, that's going to be 2 points. Your threaded discussions, there's 4 of them. You'll get 5 points for each one that's done properly. Now, what I do when I go through the course and I see that assignments have been submitted, many times I find that the threaded discussions will only have just the first post, and that's fine. Okay, there's no problem. I will give you the points for what you posted. And then when you post again, that assignment's going to pop back up in the grade book. And then I will be giving you more points as we go along. Okay, so don't look at it and say, oh my goodness, I only got 3 points here. What's going on? Well, if I didn't see the responses to your peers, then that will show up at a later time. So you'll get your points for it. Okay, chapter 1, which is your introduction, that's 30 points. You need to have the title page, you need to have an abstract, and you need to have your keywords. So the title page, you're given a sample of the title page. So please follow that format. In the title page and subsequent pages, you will use the running head. but use the new directions for the running head. Now, if this were just a casual paper, then I would say you don't need the running head. But because this is a compilation, you're gathering up 4 documents together into one large paper, and it's going to be ready for publication, then you need to have that running head. So that's why we're requiring that. Chapter 2, it will be your literature review, and that's worth 30 points. Now, keep in mind that when you add chapters, each chapter starts on a new page. Okay, so when you get to the end of chapter 1, don't just say chapter 2 and then continue reading or writing. You need to start on a fresh sheet. So here's a suggestion for you, because I know in my own case, I have a tendency to do a lot of writing, and then when I go back and I look at it, I notice I need to change some things. So I may add another paragraph. So what I do is, where I want my chapter 2 to start, I use Control Enter. That gives me a page break. Control Enter gives me a page break. So if I need to add something before chapter 2, I can do that. And if it means that it adds an extra page in there, it's not going to mess up my chapter 2. Okay, and then the same thing will happen with chapter 3 and chapter 4. Okay, so chapter 3 is going to be the, that's your biggest paper. So you notice there that it says it'll be your methods, which is worth 80 points, and then appendices. So you make some appendices. We supply you with some ideas. You don't have to use those. You can use your own. It's entirely up to you. We put those there so it gives you an idea of things that you can do. And then chapter 4 is due with your references for the entire paper. Each chapter, you should be updating your references. Okay, so don't wait until the last section, chapter 4, because I go through your paper and I check to make sure that the references have inline citations. And if you don't put a reference section on there, then I won't be able to do that. So you'll end up losing points. So you don't want to do that. Okay. Are there any questions up to this point? Is everything okay? All right. Okay, so then the grading system is based on some points. This is one of the few courses which is just simply a pass or fail. Okay, so you have honors, which is 184 to 200 points. Satisfactory, 183 to 140 points. And unsatisfactory would be under 140 points. Unsatisfactory is the only one that will not affect your GPA. Okay, so if it's unsatisfactory, then you have to take the course again in order to get credit for this course. Okay. All right, so the definition of grades, you can look that up. There's a link there. Professional dispositions and civility. Okay, that's self-explanatory. Professionalism, you've had that explained to you before. Your attendance, of course, this is an online course, so I don't take attendance. I can tell in the course when the last time that you accessed the course, and I can tell how many times during the course of time, how many times that you've gone into the course. So that's how I keep track of whether you're putting enough time into the course or not. Okay, written assignments. Okay, the expectations. Okay, they should be submitted as Microsoft Word documents. Okay, that's the best one to use. Any other form, it doesn't come out right. So if you're trying to use Apple, it's not going to work. I won't be able to open it. Okay, and PDF, it's barely okay, but even then, sometimes the format doesn't come through the way it's supposed to. All right, your paper should be error-free in sentence construction, grammar, punctuation, and spelling. Okay, so this is why I suggest Grammarly.com. That's going to be a big help. All right, and all papers have to be submitted in Blackboard. Okay, not as email. Okay, I have to be able to save your documents inside of Blackboard. Okay, so I can't do that. I cannot take your papers and submit them to Blackboard. So you have to do that. Now I get a copy of those documents so that I can go through the paper, grade it, leave you some feedback. Okay, late work guidelines for late work. Okay, the assignments are due by midnight, California time, on Saturday or Sunday, unless noted differently. Okay, the only time that's going to be different will be is if you have an issue with trying to get a paper done on time, you need some more time. Okay, you let me know so that I can give you that extra time. Okay, so if you don't talk to me before the due date, the late work cannot be accepted and no credit will be given for the assignment. Okay, late assignments are accepted only with prior approval. To obtain that approval, you must request this approval by email, and then I will respond by either approving or denying the request. You're allowed 2 late assignment requests during the course. Okay, I've never denied anybody their request if it's for 1 or 2 days. You know, with so much stuff going on, the COVID-19, personal illness, some of you are under pending evacuation orders. A number of things can happen that will prevent you from completing your assignment on time. Okay, I respect that. I understand it. So just keep me apprised, keep me in the loop so that I can help you. All right, and late work is usually accepted with a deduction of 20% in the grade. Okay, if you have a good enough reason for being late, then I will not deduct the 20%. All right, late discussion board posts receive a point value of 0. All right, so dispositions, the capacity for analytical and critical thinking and for creative problem solving. So you have the ability to engage in independent, creative, and reflective thought. That's what I'm going to be looking for in your papers. You need to also have a respect for ethical practice and social responsibility. And the skill of effective communication, both written and oral, the development of information literacy and research professional language. Okay, so be careful in your writing not to use jargon or colloquialisms. I understand the need for coined words. That's fine, but if it's not common knowledge, then you need to define that. Pretend like the person who's reading is opening up a journal and they're looking for information. They come across your article. You want them to be able to understand what you're writing. So you may need to define those coined words. Okay, Methods of assessment. All of your assignments need to go into the Dropbox. Okay, your threaded discussions, they need to go where there's a link for uploading your discussions. So you'll be able to use that. Okay, there's rubrics. The rubric that I'm using for this course is kind of open-ended a little bit. There's certain elements that have to be in the paper. Okay, and how you develop those points, I'm giving you some leeway in how to do that. So I'm not going to try to micromanage you, but you do need to make sure that all of the elements that are required are in the paper. Okay, so I hope everybody understands that. It's important to take a look at your assignments and know exactly what you need to do. My recommendation is the 3 documents that talk about the coursework. You should probably download and print those so that you have a hard copy right next to wherever you do your studies. That way you don't forget to look at the requirements for an assignment. Okay, it's really easy to think that, oh, well, I don't need to do this, or I don't need to do that, or I need to do something else. But if you don't look at those directions, you really won't know. So it's like turning the lights off in the room and throwing a dart and hoping to hit your target. So please don't do that. All right, and then of course you have your code of conduct, civility, diversity. We use people first language. So when you're talking about children with a specific disability, don't say this disabled child. Say this child who has a disability. This way you're honoring that student. You're honoring the person as a person. Okay, you're not taking a disability and marginalizing it by adding the person at the end. So please remember that. Okay, and academic integrity. Okay, plagiarism. Plagiarism is, it's a hard thing to deal with. I remember when I was in high school many years ago, my teachers used to tell me just to copy things word for word out of a book and put them into the paper. Well, see, that's plagiarism. We're not supposed to do that. Many of us were taught that method when we were going to school many years ago. Okay, we can't do that. Okay, we need to paraphrase. So the author says something, you really like what the author says, so paraphrase it, put it in your own words, and then give a citation where you got that information. Please keep your word for word quotes to a minimum. Okay, and to highlight that, one of the requirements for APA is that any direct quote that has more than 39 words has to use special formatting. So APA is putting it right there in your face. You don't need to be using those long quotes. Sometimes you have no other way to say something, but that should be extremely rare. So put things in your own words, then cite where you got that information. So the APA guide that hopefully you'll get, we'll go into that with some detail. There's a link that you have right here that you can also go to, which will give you also some ideas. The only problem is that it highlights MLA style more than APA. We don't use MLA with this course. As you're aware, APA works with psychology. And as teachers, we use psychology to help us to teach our children. So the formatting of any papers that we write should be in APA format. Okay, and then talking about quoting, paraphrasing, summarizing. So here again, this is MLA. So it's going to be somewhat similar to APA, but not exact. Okay, so I'll give you an example. This last week, I got a paper in, and the paper was 27 pages long. It had 35 long quotes. The average quote was almost 100 words. Okay, that's excessive. Now, the student did the proper format and cited the sources perfectly. But the problem is that you cannot have that much direct quote in your paper. If you have that much direct quote in the paper, you have to write a letter to the author and get written permission from the author to quote that much. And then that letter has to be submitted with the paper. So obviously I had to send the paper back to the student to have that situation corrected. And I just suggested, look, just put it in your own words. You took all this time to write it. You're very, very familiar with what the author said. Now just put it in your own words and then place your citation there showing what your source of information was. Okay. So we don't want to see the plagiarism like that. Okay, your writing standards. Okay, it's going to be, as I've mentioned a couple of times, it's going to be based on APA. And you'll have this link here, which I'm pretty sure that it still works. If it doesn't work, please let me know. Over a period of time, sometimes the links stop working. Okay. All right, so before I go to the next document, are there any questions? Okay, no questions? Okay. All right, so let me go to the next document. All right, so you should see a paper here. It says Special Education Department. Do you see that? No? Okay, I know what I did. Let me, let's see here. Here we go. Okay, new share. Okay, part 2. Okay. All right, did I do it correctly this time? You should see Special Education Department at the very top of the document. Okay, good, good, thank you. This technology is wonderful, but sometimes we forget a little detail. All right, so the Master Capstone Project, week by week schedule. Okay, I'm not going to read all this to you. You guys know how to read. But just go ahead and you need to pay close attention to these paragraphs here. This one here says get a reading buddy. Okay, one of the biggest problems that I find in papers coming to me is that the student forgets to proofread the paper. Well, then obvious glaring errors are in the paper that if the student would have just simply gone back and just read the paper before submitting it, the student would have found those errors. But, you know, being in a hurry or whatever the reason was, they didn't. So we suggest getting a reading buddy. In other words, somebody who can just glance through your paper and point out spelling errors or punctuation errors, or if something doesn't seem to be clearly written, you know, maybe tell you that so that you can go back and fix it. That'll save you a lot of time because you're going to have to go back and fix it anyway. when I leave you your comments, then you'll need to fix those things. So if you do that as you're going along, then you shouldn't have that much of a problem. Okay, so that can be somebody that you trust, could be your spouse, your significant other, maybe it's another student in the class, someone who you trust will give you good information. All right, and then of course you have your Collaborate recordings. Now you won't have to go to any place special. I'm going to embed any videos that I make for this course. I'm going to embed them into the course. So you don't have to go searching for it. It's going to be right there. It'll probably be in the virtual office. That's what I'm thinking. All right, so you got week 1. You have required readings. So we provide the links to the information, so it should be very easy to get that information. And then you have some optional reading if you would like to read some more on that. And then of course, we're having our first live Collaborate session right now. I try not to go 2 hours. Sometimes it's necessary, but I try not to. That makes it very late for me here too. All right, and so you have discussion week number 1. And in this, you've got a template here. So you can actually copy this template and put that into your discussion board. Just fill in the blanks. Okay, I don't know how many of you use close sentences in school. That's CLOZE. That's where you write a sentence and you'll eliminate a few words here and there and have the student fill in the words. So this is very similar to that. So you'll just simply answer these questions. So these are color coded here just so that you can go back up here and see what those color coding is referring to. So that makes this very, very easy. The first one is very easy. All right, and then of course you're going to respond to two of your peers, a minimum of 2. Okay, as I mentioned earlier, you need to upload both your city documents, the certificate and the transcript. Okay, and then your SPD 695 literature review text and any appendices. All right, and then week 2, you're going to have chapter 1 is going to be due. And of course, you get special points for the title page, abstract, and your keywords. Remember that the abstract is never, ever indented in APA. Okay, that's the only part that doesn't get indented. Okay, and your abstract should be long enough to make your point without writing your paper. Okay, so I wouldn't have more than say 100 words in there. If you have a lot that you need to say in the abstract, maybe 150, but you really don't need that many. Okay, your keywords, those need to be in italics, and your keywords are centered. Okay. All right, then week number 3, we may or may not have a live Collaborate session. We'll see how things are going. If I'm getting a lot of questions and there's a need to get together as a group and discuss them, then we'll do that. But I will give you at least a few days notice in advance. If we do that, then use the same credentials to log in as you used this evening. Okay, week 4, then the same thing. If we're going to have a live session, I will let you know. Okay, and then the discussion week number 5, and then 6 again. We'll determine whether we need the live session or not. And then you have your assignment for week number 6. That's your chapter 3. Okay, so what I would recommend, since this is the biggest part of your assignment, I would get those other two assignments, chapters 1 and 2. I would get those out as soon as you can so that you can spend time working on chapter 3, because this is where you're going to get the most points. Okay, you need the time to be able to write effectively, go back through the paper, make any corrections or any edits that you need to. If you need to add a paragraph or two, if you need to delete a paragraph, if you need to change some parts of it. Okay, please give yourself the time to do that. Okay, and then you should also have some appendix, have at least 1 or 2. And this is telling me how you plan to collect your data. If you don't have a plan to collect data, you won't collect data. All right, and then you have your discussion for week number 7. And then week number 8, again, you're going to have your final assignment, and everything in the capstone project is due. Okay. All right, and then there's a few points here for certain elements of the paper. Okay, so the summary of allocated points, that shows how it's all broken down. So maximum of 200 points. Okay, any questions so far? Everybody okay? Nobody's fallen asleep yet? I'm just teasing. I know it's late for you guys. It's late for me too. All right, let me get the third document up. All right, so do you see capstone proposal checklist? Okay, good, excellent. Okay, so these are checkpoints. Okay, I would print a couple of copies of this so that when you're going through your assignments, you can check these off as you're doing them. This will help you to really prepare an excellent paper. This is also the format that you would use if you were going to produce a paper for publication in a journal. See, so this is preparing you for that. So we look forward to the time when you as graduates will be able to do your own research projects and write papers on them, submit them to journals, and that way you can get published. It's always a very good thing. It's very useful in your resumes. You can tell a prospective principal that you're published. You know, they really like that. Then they know that you're really on your game. All right, so the mechanics. I'm not sure why this statement is here, but I wouldn't worry about it. The mechanics need to be in each element of the paper. Don't wait until you're in chapter 4 and then try to go back through the entire paper and make all of these corrections. It becomes a monster. So don't do that, please. Okay, this shows you the elements of the title page. Okay, so you need your running head. Now, in other versions of APA, it will tell you that on the title page that you should include the words running head. In edition number 7, you do not use the words running head. You'll go ahead and put your running head in there, but you do not need to identify it as running head. Okay, your page number should be on the right side of your paper at the top. Please do not put your page numbers at the bottom. Please do not put your name or anything else next to the page number. Page number by itself, you'll have your running head at the top of each page, and then on that right side, you'll have the page number. Okay, and then you'll have your the name of the project, your full student's name. Okay, the name of the master's program, which is going to be Master of Education in Special Education, unless your outcome is going to be a little bit different. Okay, then the full name of the professor, for example, Michael Glatfelter, the month and year of the start of the course, which is November 2020. Okay, the abstract is worth 3 points. You put in there the purpose, your participants, name your independent, dependent variables, your experimental design, and your hypothesized results. What is it that you're expecting to find as a result? Okay, and then your keywords, 3 to 5 keywords for your capstone project. So what I would suggest, you can use Control F. If you're using a Windows machine, when you're finished with your paper, then use Control F and type in a couple of words that you think are in the paper, well, you know they are, and see how many times they show up in the paper. Okay, it'll take you to each place where you've used that word. So you want to use keywords that are used often in your paper. So actually, when you're doing your abstract, the abstract should basically be just about the last thing you do in the paper, because you really don't know what's going to be in the paper until you've written it. And if you write something in the abstract, you get finished with your paper, and then you go back and look at the abstract and you say, huh, I didn't write about this at all. I wrote about something else. Then you're going to have to rewrite your abstract. So just wait for the abstract until you're finished. Okay, you can do the abstract either before or after you do your reference page. All right, so then chapter 1 gives you pretty much how you're going to be graded. Okay, so chapter 1, you're going to have certain elements. Each of these elements that are in bold need to be in the paper. Okay, so you're going to get 1 point for your introduction, get 2 points for the background of the study, and you see that there's a place to put check marks. Okay, so this will help you so that you make sure that you don't forget anything. Okay, so this is one area where many students forget to put this in there, the audience. Who do you expect to read your paper and benefit from your findings? And the only reason why they forgot this part is because they didn't look at the checklist. Okay, so please do that. Please look at that. Significance of the study, 2 points. Research question, 3 points. Now this research question is going to be easy because, well, do you recognize this part here? Didn't we just talk about this a couple minutes ago? See, so all you need to do is to fill this in, and of course follow the prompts here. So this part is going to be really easy. Okay, now don't use color in there. Don't use these colors. These colors are here just so that you can go back. Say, for example, okay, how effective is yellow, this method of teaching, or independent variable in teaching? In teaching the gray, which is the X number of students with what type of disability? Say, so you're going to have that here. And then you're going to tell whether this is elementary school, whether it's middle school, whether it's a group of students, high school, etc. And then 2, and then you're going to discuss that behavior or skill that you're going to teach. So this should be fairly easy. All right, then your assumptions, okay, just follow the directions there. Limitations. Limitations are things that you cannot control. For example, you cannot control whether a parent spends time with their child at home in tutoring. So you can't control that, but that element could have a factor in the results of your study. Okay, obviously that student is going to feel better about themselves and probably do a better job in the classroom. Okay, delimitations are things that you can control. So it gives you some examples there. And then definitions of terms. Okay, you need a minimum of 6. Okay, you can do word for word from scholarly books or peer-reviewed articles. Don't copy an entire paragraph for the definition. Most of the time, just putting it in your own words is going to be helpful. But you do need to tell what your source is. You can use the same source for 2 definitions, not 3 or 4 or 5. Okay, so you're going to quote 6 definitions at a minimum. Excuse me. APA style 7th edition, your citation should include the page numbers. Now, if the use of a particular term has to be adapted to what you're going to use it for in your research, then you need to define it the way you're going to use it. Okay, does that make sense? Instead of just taking the book's word for the definition, if you are going to use that word differently, then make sure that you provide your definition for that word. It could be a simple word, but you're using it in a special way. All right, so summary notes for chapter 1. Okay, you're going to need 4 citations for the different sections, plus you're going to need 6 citations for your definitions. That could be a total of 10. Could be a total of 7. It depends on how you're using those sources. So that's going to be an expectation. I'm going to be looking for that in your paper. So please don't forget to put your references in there, and please make sure that you cite those things properly. All right, then chapter 2 is going to be a review of related literature. Now you've already done a review of 8 of the articles. So you can use those same articles that you used in SPD 695. You need to find 4 additional primary research articles which were published within the last 10 years. Okay, summarize them using the following information at a minimum. So this means that even though you're going to be permitted to use the articles that you had in 695, this is not a cut and paste of that assignment in 695. You still need to answer these questions here. Okay, this list of questions here. Okay, and then of course you need 4 more. And those have to be primary sources, cannot be more than 10 years of age. Let's see. Okay, not allowed in this chapter are dissertations. This would be like somebody's writing a paper for a doctorate. You cannot use that. You cannot use thesis papers, chapters out of a textbook, blogs, or magazine articles. Okay, these need to be journal articles. They need to be peer-reviewed journal articles. Okay, so those 4 have to follow that requirement. I need all 12 PDFs with your chapter 2. If you choose to upload them ahead of time, that's fine with me. Okay, but remember that when you start putting things in the grade box to upload them, if you hit that submit button before you put everything into that box, you may get locked out. You might not be able to put the rest of your articles in there. So put as many of the articles, well, you can get them all in there. I don't think there's a limit to how many articles that you can get in there. Please make sure that the articles are identified so that when I take a look and compare them to what you're using in writing your chapters, that I will be able to make those connections. Okay. All right. Any questions so far? I know this is pretty heavy duty here. Okay, no questions? Okay. Remember, if you do come up with some questions, do not hesitate to let me know. Okay, I'll help you out in any way I can. All right, your chapter 3, your methods. Okay, again, you have a checklist. Okay, so you need to make sure that each of these items is included in your paper. So you're going to talk about your hypothesis, your participants, how many, what their ages are. Do not use their complete names, just use hypothetical names, et cetera, et cetera. If you're referring to a school district or a school, you remember from your city training that you're not allowed to do that. Okay, so if you're saying a school district in San Diego, California, now you would say a school district in the southwestern part of the United States. The reason for this is to protect the identity of your target students. You don't want somebody who has ulterior motives trying to figure out where a certain student is in a particular school. So you're going to make it very generic. Okay, so please do not specifically identify a school or a school district. All right, then you're going to talk about including, excluding participants from the study. In every study that you do, you're going to have certain participants, you're going to exclude others. What criteria are you using for that process? Okay, then you come down a little bit further here, and in describing how your research, how are you going to accomplish that research? For example, you may say, well, okay, I'm going to ask a question. Okay, now typically you don't get instant answers back from your students. Sometimes you do. Sometimes it surprises you. But for the most part, there's going to be a little bit of a wait, okay, because they have to think about the question. How long are you going to wait before you move on to the next prompt? So you need to say, what is it? Is it 5 seconds? Is it 10 seconds? How much time will these students need to be able to make an adequate response? Since you're working with a group of students that you're familiar with, you should be able to figure out how much time. Okay, if you're going to use letter naming, how are they going to do it? Do you use numeral matching? Are you going to have sets of plastic letters or numbers and then have them match up to flashcards, something so that the media is different and they're going to match things up? Whatever you're going to do, okay? Your motor and verbal skills, if there's a program out there, TouchMath. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but you have flashcards and the students will touch a certain number of dots for each number. And so that connects physical with what they're thinking about in the head. So the 2, for example, is going to have 2 dots on it. And so they would count 1, 2. Okay, so if you're doing that, then describe how you're going to do it. That way, if they're going to add 2 numbers, let's say 2 plus 3, and they're using the touch math, they'll have the number 2, they'll have the number 3, and then they can count the dots, and they should have come up with 5 dots. And so it becomes a kind of like a ritual. It helps cement the ideas in the head. Okay, attention to task. Any of these things that you want in your study, please describe how you're going to do it. Okay. The reason for doing this is that if somebody comes behind you and wants to know what you were doing, you're giving them a blueprint of how you did your study. They should be able to replicate it and see if they came up with the same results that you did. Another way to look at this would be like doing a lesson plan. Okay, you're not going to be at school on a certain day for whatever reason. Okay, you've already programmed for a sub to be there, and you're leaving detailed information. That sub should be able to follow that list that you give them and have a successful class that day. Think this also as preparing your lesson plans that you submit to your principal. Okay, most principals ask for either 1 or 2 weeks in advance your lesson plans, what you plan to teach and how you plan to teach it, so that when your principal comes into your classroom and wants to observe how you're doing it, then you're prepared. It's not like, oh my goodness, my principal is here. Now what do I do? Okay, so you'll know exactly what you're doing. All right. And then all of these different things here that you can review. These are elements that should be in that paper, in that chapter 3. So please make sure that you hit each of these subtopics here and explain what you're going to do. This is why I say this particular paper, it's going to take some time to do it, okay, because you're going to have to really think about it. And when you're finished with this paper, that's going to be a pretty good idea on how to make your lesson plans for submitting to the principal. Makes it a lot easier because you already know what to do. Okay, so then you go through and just keep note of what you're doing here. Mark these things off. You don't have to have every single item that's in the list. These are ideas. Okay, you're going to have 7 points, but you do need to cover quite a bit of this information. But if you leave one of these items out, I don't think it's going to hurt anything. Just don't leave a whole subtopic out. Okay, then your overview, the description of your conditions, your baseline procedure, all of that, and your intervention. Okay, now this is very important. Okay, and as you notice, you get 30 points for this, for the intervention. Okay, so what you're trying to do is you're trying to figure out how you're going to help your students. There's a certain challenge in your classroom, and you want to be able to figure out, what do I need to do to overcome this challenge? It might be a behavior issue. It might be something else. How are you going to get through that? So this is where you're going to come in and you're going to add these items in here, and add as many of these items as you like. And be thinking of maybe different ways that you would do it that do not match all of these items here. So I'm not telling you that you have to follow this to the letter here. If you have a special way that you want to try, then put that in there. Okay, it'll be okay. All right. So then you can ask yourself a question. Is there sufficient detail in your presentation of the intervention procedures to permit an independent reader to implement all aspects of the condition with high procedural validity? That is, can someone else replicate your study? Is the flow of the teaching natural, or do you feel that it's forced? If it feels forced, then it does not represent your style of teaching. You need to modify it to match your style. So we're not trying to change the way that you teach in your classroom. What we're trying to do is to help you to expand your teaching. Okay, you know what works for you, you know what does not work for you. Okay, take what works for you, expand it. What doesn't work for you, try to change it into something that will work. Okay, so I'm sure that you'll do a good job with this. Okay, so that's number 4. And then number 3. Chapter 4 is your data analysis. Okay, how do you propose to analyze the effectiveness? Okay, what kind of records are you going to keep? How are you going to collect the data? Where are you going to store the data? Okay, if you don't have a data collection system, you're not going to be collecting the data. And as we're aware, data is what should be driving our instruction, because the data is going to tell us what's working and what is not working. So make sure that you cover these items. And then, of course, you'll have a conclusion. Now, remember that in a conclusion, and I talk about this specifically because I see so many papers where it'll say conclusion, and then there'll be 10 paragraphs for the conclusion. And there are a lot of new information in there. No, the conclusion is a summary. It's not introduction of new ideas. Your paper should already have your main points in there. They should be very clear. Okay, so if you find that in your conclusion that you're having to add a lot of extra stuff in there, then you need to stop and rethink. You need to go back through your headings and see where you can add that additional information. Okay, so please, the conclusion is a summary. Do not add new information there. Okay, all right, and then as a discussion, you'll talk about what you will do to change or do something differently as a result of this research in this course. Almost everybody finds something that they're going to change. A few don't. That's entirely up to you. Okay, but hopefully you will have learned something new that's going to help you to become a better teacher, more effective teacher. Okay, what did you learn about yourself, about your teaching style? Okay, any further questions that you can anticipate that maybe you might be asking in the future, or maybe you're thinking, oh, well, the teacher next door, or at least if you're back teaching in the building right now, maybe the teacher next door had this question. So maybe I should think about that question. And, you know, things like that will come up. And maybe in your discussions with each other, you'll think of different questions that you can ask. So remember that research is ongoing. It never stops. This is part of being a lifelong learner. You never want to stop researching. You find some issue that comes up in your classroom, work on it, do some research, find out what others have done, to help resolve or mitigate that particular problem. Okay. All right. Then in your references need to be in alphabetical order. Okay. Use hanging indent. Does everybody know what hanging indent is? Okay, so you nodding, that's good. All right, so please don't forget that. And then any appendices that you use, please include those. I've put a couple of appendix items in there. You can use those or make up your own. It's fine with me. Okay, whatever works for you is going to work for me. Okay, I respect you as teachers, so just work on perfecting your art as a teacher. Okay, and here's an example of an appendix. So the appendix would, in this particular case, is describing how you're doing your research and how you're figuring out what your responses are. Okay, another one could be you're taking trials. Okay, for example, how many seconds delay, and you're going to choose the numbers that meet the needs of your students. Obviously, if you're working with kindergarten-aged kids, then these response times are going to be different. And of course, depending on the disability of the child, that's going to have a lot to do with it. So you put your student name, etc. This helps you to compile your information so that when you make your report, you'll be able to tell what has happened, what kind of improvement. If you don't have that data, you don't know whether it worked or not. Okay, your principal comes up to you and says, hey, I'm going to pick on Jason. Say, hey, Jason, okay, how do you know this worked? Well, I know it worked. See, but we need data behind it, right? So I apologize, Jason. I had to pick on somebody. Okay, so just make sure that you're backing up everything with data, raw data. In fact, when I was working with kindergarten kids for many years, I used to keep a journal, and I would mark off on the journal students' names. And as I would walk around in the classroom and work with individual students, then I would jot down some notes. And this was a big help to me because at the end of the day, when I did an analysis of my day of teaching, I was able to figure out what worked, what didn't. What were some of the challenges that popped up during the day? The methods that I used to respond to them, did they work? Did the situation get better? Did it get worse? And so this was a good tool to help me to constantly be refining my art as a teacher. So if you're thinking of making some kind of a journal, I highly recommend it. This also will help you if you have behavior issues with the student and the parent saying, I don't believe that my child is doing this or that. Okay, it happens. Some parents are that way. That no matter what their child does, they're in denial. So when you have a journal, then you can refer to specific days and times of days, and that can be helpful. It's also helpful when it comes time for your IEPs, because then you can go back and review what you've written about a particular student and what the challenges that student faces, what the successes that the student has, and what the student needs as revised goals. So you always need to put some positive things in those IEPs. The best way to do it is through your journals, so that you're writing down what you're seeing in the classroom on a daily basis. For me, it was just too hard for me to try to organize everything up in my head. So I had to start writing it down so that I wouldn't forget the good points as well as the challenged points. Okay. And so another one. Okay, and then here's another one where you can put down some, you can use code if you want to determine what's going on. If you have group dynamics, maybe one of your students works well with certain students, maybe not so well with another student. So by keeping track of these things, you can build your dynamics so that you're not placing that child who has problems with other students in the group, where you're going to have those situations that come up. So everything is good to say about the journals. Okay, so that looks like that's that. All right, so that covers the 3 parts of the syllabus. So you're more than likely going to have questions as you go along, and that's fine. Please let me know what your questions are. If we need to get together again as groups, then we can do that. So I'm here to try to help you. I want you to be successful. So I'm going to do what I can to help you. Okay. Any questions? Okay, very good. Well, I appreciate you taking the time. We spent about an hour and a half, and I hope it was worth the investment of time. And you'll find my email address in the syllabus, and I believe it was in the email that I sent out to everybody. So I will embed this this video in the course. I'm thinking that I will put it in the virtual office. So if you want to review the video again, you're welcome to do that. If somebody asks, then you can direct them to that. I'll send out another message letting everybody know where it is. So have an enjoyable time with the course, and I hope nobody has to be evacuated. But if you do, then I wish you well. Just keep me posted as to what's going on so that I can work with you. Okay. All right. So you have a wonderful evening, and I'll be looking forward to your papers and your comments. Okay. Thank you, and good night.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Welcome. All right, stop the